What's good, folks? Welcome to another edition of the Cover One Film Room, presented, of course, by our friends at Easy Loan Auto Sales. This show, the Film Room, of course, always giving you the hows and the whys behind both the good and the bad of the
Very
Buffalo
bad.
Bills, the very bad. I am one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Eric Turner and Eric. We had a bye week this past week, which was not really nice because the Bills limped into the bye and
Yeah.
everybody's pretty upset. And there's a lot of stuff to still break down. There's a lot of consternation about several areas of vulnerability or deficiency, some struggles, why they're happening, how they're happening. We're obviously going to dive into that in this episode, really on both sides of the ball and put some things into perspective. But before we do that, how's it going? How you feeling? How you doing?
Good, man. It was it's been a long bye week and self-scouting week. And Aaron kills me here. He goes, "Did Ant get kicked out of his house?" No, Anthony honestly was so mad. All of uh the Bills season is over in the bye
Done.
week. He just ripped everything off the walls, and that was it. He's like, "I'm done with this."
I put it into one of those like metal garbage cans that are like all cracked and rusty, and I lit everything on fire. I'm done.
Or better yet, you put it into something that you could, bury in the time capsule in 20
Nice.
years. When you open it, you're like, you remember that bye week when everyone thought the season was over, but the Bills went on to win the
Mm,
championship? That would be pretty cool too, though. So
They're very satisfying. No, but
yeah,
yeah, I didn't I everybody I said it last week in discuss coverage. I said it this week in the film or last week in the film room. We moved. I'd have the background ready for next week. Eric and I were talking offline. He got sick at the end of last week. I got horribly
yeah,
sick at the end of last week. So my whole last week and weekend got scrapped. I did add Bill's helmet
I like
with
it.
along with the little black cat and the pumpkin there.
Okay,
But by
yeah,
next week,
come
I'm not
closer.
trying to
Yeah,
put myself into I'm not trying to put myself into a corner here, but by next week, things will be up. I actually have all my pictures and things. You can see a little bit of the frame. They're all behind me. I just need to get them up and out, and I just haven't done that yet.
it's a process. Like making the
It's a
little studio
process.
is a process, and it's something that we typically try to switch up or change up every couple of years. And hey, things happen. You still got the tree there, so
It's all
the
that matters.
superstition is still alive and the tradition's still alive. And but when it comes to the Bills, their tradition
Oh,
of winning, it's been a couple weeks, so that tradition has been kind of lost over the last couple weeks. And so in this episode, as Ann said, we're going to talk about some of the whys behind those struggles on offense and defense. And if we're going to talk about the struggles and the ups and downs of the season, I think you have to start on the defensive side of the ball, which, as we all know, Bobby Babbitt, Sean McDermott, this should be a very strong defensive unit. But over the last few years, it's been up and down as well. And I feel like this year has probably been the worst year as far as the instability or variance of that defense, especially if we're talking the spine of the defense, something that we thought and that the team had addressed this offseason in free agency, but also in the draft. So, Anthony, your thoughts on the spine of the defense, up the middle, D tackles, linebackers, safeties. We're going to discuss all three levels today in the film room. What are your thoughts on that spine and some of those struggles that we are seeing week in and week out?
yeah. I do want to say, we've obviously talked about this before. We'll talk about this episode. Injuries have played a huge role here,
Yes.
so kind of want to put that caveat there. But my thoughts on the spine are really like all not all of them, but my worst fears like came true with
Yeah.
like what's happened in the spine. You know, my biggest concern was displacement and guys probably getting pushed around. And so we've seen some of that, but it's also been, poor in run fit integrity, multiple guys in the same gaps, and then all the missed tackles and everything.
Hmm.
And that's bad in and of itself, like in a vacuum, not being able to defend the run. But then the impact that it's had on coverage, which we'll talk about, and then specifically how that ties into the safeties that the Bills have and how it's just created this kind of giant, like, I don't know, chicken egg scenario or like a snake eating its tail, however you want to verbalize it, where everything's just kind of going round and round, and you don't like the cause is also the result, and the result is also the cause. And it's just been frustrating to see because they did put resources there and they have, again, had guys injured, but really seeing how things have played out on the interior and watching the just consistent struggles there in a multitude of forms and fashions has been extremely disconcerting. the disconnect between the levels,
Yeah.
just guys performing below their standard all at once with one another. It's really kind of been like the opposite of complimentary football through a lot of the levels, and it's been a lot of my fears come to reality so far this year.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to the injuries with Ed Oliver and now Daquan Jones, like we understood, like, okay, that's going to affect some things, especially when you're talking about really the engine of the Bills defensive line, and that's Ed Oliver. Everyone else pretty much plays off of him, but also the consistency that Daquan Jones was playing at and him getting hurt prior to that Falcons game, you saw how much of a difference impact, him not being there, was in that game.
Yeah.
But overall, also the variance and the ups and downs of rookie DTs, TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, you have Logan there, practice squad guy at times.
Jordan Phillips,
Jordan
should
Phillips.
not be seeing the light of day. Like even you just saying it
Right.
right there, like when everybody was not suspended and healthy, Walker and Sanders, however you want to look at them, were supposed to be defensive tackle 4 and 5. Walker's been defensive tackle 2, and he's been really the starting 1 tech with Daquan having to play the 3.
Yeah, and so I think when you're talking about those young guys and those practice squad type players, I think we expected some variance, but everything all at once with injuries and the reps that those young guys had to, and on the job training, really, those guys had to go through, which is a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think you saw a lot of that inconsistencies in the upfront, but also you saw guys like Terrell Bernard start to struggle because he's trying to make things right when those young guys or those inconsistent plays happen. And then he's getting, lit up and thrown out of the club a bunch. Not something he's not usually doing because he's able to trigger downhill because he knows, okay, Daquan's fitting into his gap. I can go to my gap now instead of, Deion Walker, while he makes some great plays, also gets thrown into the wrong gap. And now Terrell Bernard's trying to make up for it. And he's getting picked up by an offensive lineman. So I think we expected some of that variance. But overall, if you're talking about rushes by running backs, currently the Bills defense is giving up 1.22 yards before contact per rush, just to running backs only. Now, it's actually higher because if you include QB scrambles and stuff like that and QB runs, but we're just looking at running backs, it's 1.22 yards. That's 18th overall, so below average. But better
than what I thought it would be this year. I thought it would be worse. So like it's not great, but I think decent.
But if you look at yards post contact per rush,
bro,
it's the worst in the league. Again, just for running backs, running back yards post contact per rush, 4.22 yards, 32nd in the league. Missed tackles. I mean, you're going to hear us talk about it a lot. And it's not just the safeties. Yes, the safeties are missing tackles at rates, especially for Rapp, a guy like Rapp that we've never seen before, but every level is affected. And it's always been kind of the MO for this defense. But again, so has been the havoc side of that spectrum, that give and take, right? And so we're not getting some havoc, but not in the passing game. And we'll get to that later. But I think we expected some of these inconsistencies, but we didn't expect how bad a tackling to this level that almost like some of the explosive plays, you're like, come on, if that was guy was only tripped up in the second level, man, that would have been a big difference.
Yeah, that's really been the biggest change from last year and what it's been. Can you hear that alarm that's going on outside?
I swear, like one of the people in the chat, dude. One of the people in the chat are outside your house right now just doing that because the motorcycle's not going by.
I can see someone. First, I was like, oh no, is that my car? But someone's like car is beeping. I'm just going to keep talking and try and drown it out. But yeah, essentially like the displacement concerns that I thought they would have, they've lessened that a little bit. And if you would have told me that, I would have been like, oh wow, the run defense is probably working out. But that slight increase has been almost like the cost of it was just tackling and fits and integrity and everything that comes along with that. And, you hit it on the head there. If they can just get some of these guys down, instead of having 31 runs of 10 or more yards, which is second only to the Miami Dolphins.
Yes.
Those runs could be 6 yards, 7 yards, 5 yards, maybe 8 at some point. And then pairing that with, you talked about the havoc plays, they started to creep up a little bit. They're 11th in stuff rate right now, which is runs of 0 or less. But to start the year, they weren't getting those and they were having the poor struggles inside. So it's really always been, like you mentioned, people always talk about the Bills defense. It's like, oh, like bend and bend but don't break. Their defense is really like gash or get gashed. It's live by the sword, die by the sword. They're either getting you for a loss of 3 or they're getting gashed for like 6 to 9 or even more. But those even more was usually like, okay, they'll make the tackle at 11 or 12. Now that tackle that was coming at 11 or 12 is coming at 17 or 18, or it's not coming at all, and it's resulting in a house call, and it's all of these compounding factors stacking and adding and stacking and adding.
You said, 31 runs of 10 yards or more, 31st in the NFL behind the Dolphins only. And on those 10 plus runs, or 31 runs of 10 plus yards or more, they've had 20 missed tackles.
Oh,
20 out of 31 plays, 20 missed tackles, which is 31st in the NFL. And the average is 8.5 missed tackles. The Bills are at 20 on those 10 plus yard runs. And of course, Rapp, Bishop, I know it's something that you dove into later in the week as well.
Yeah.
They are missing a lot of tackles, but again, the context is, okay, why are they, missing so many tackles? You have to look at, okay, the depth. Are they in a single high post safety look? Are they in a 2 high? Where are they coming from vertically? Where are they coming from horizontally? What is the issue with the tackling? Like, what stood out to you with those two guys? Because I know Rapp's, you could talk about his numbers and missed tackle percentages, but that is something day one when we did the film room for Rapp. That was his number one strength.
Yes.
It's obviously this year's an outlier as far as missing tackles, and maybe the sample is something to say with it right now, early in the season, but he's missing a lot of tackles. And when your safeties are missing a lot of tackles, you're allowing big runs of 10 yards or more or 20 yards or more, like we just talked about.
Yeah, just purely against the run. He's got a 25% missed tackle rate this year. He's got 8 missed tackles. He had 3 all of last year for a missed tackle rate of 3.6%. The year before that with the Bills, it was 4%, 4.6, 4.7, 4.7. And I know some people are like, oh, well, it's because he's a box safety. Now he's got to play deep. He was playing deep a ton last year. He hasn't changed in role. For me, a lot of his struggles are stemming from the angles that he's taking to the ball. And I hate like giving it because it's such like a low hanging fruit with him. I think it's like a lot of it is tied to like the lack of foot speed or athleticism. Like he can't afford any missteps in his footwork, in his angles at all, because if he does, then he doesn't have the foot speed to make up for it. If he falters slightly, he doesn't have, okay, let me like kick it into gear a little bit and make up the distance. So it's bad angles to the ball. It's the lack of athleticism and foot speed coming in that regard. It's also poor form at the tackle point, like really getting 3/4 of his body more on like the butt or the backside of the defender and having to do a lot of like pure arm or shoulder tackles on guys. Like even this one on where he's coming from the single high alignment on Kendre Miller, like Miller stumbles because he gets tripped up a little bit, and Rapp has the ability to close down on him, and then he's lunging and grabbing, and most of his body is coming behind Kendre instead of getting like majority of your body in front, trying to see where he ends up diving in his head. His face like kisses Miller's hamstring. Like he's so far behind the angle, he just gets too shallow and is lunging. So his form at the tackle point has been bad. His angles to the ball have been bad. I think a lot of it is just tied to the lack of athleticism or range or foot speed, which was an issue for him in coverage, but you could live with it because he was such a sure and sound tackler coming forward. Now that's obviously been called into question.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising. Like you saw that when he was a post safety there. This one, he's a 2 high safety structure, him and Bishop. And it's weird because like if you look at some of the advanced analytics, and this is not just a Rapp problem, but a wrapping up problem on Derrick Henry problem. It's also surprising to see that the Bills actually struggle with missing tackles more when they have a single high post safety structure. So when essentially the Bills bring up a safety, they're actually missing more tackles. And it kind of is just like it harkens back to something we talked about last week and how there's just something going on with coaching, scheming, techniques, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And like I went back and I tried everything. I'm looking at, okay, by formation, 2x2, 3x1, like single high, 2 high. Like, is there something there? Are they aligning different? I'm not seeing any glaring differences in how they are matching up, whether it's personnel wise, aside from nickel versus base, which is a conversation, but
yes,
or just formationally. And so it's hard to pinpoint like, hey, here's the actual issue and here's a solution. But it's weird to see them actually struggle in tackling when they're closer to the line of scrimmage, as opposed to those two high safety structures with Rapp and Bishop deep.
Yeah, so much of their coverage over the years was a lot of too high stuff mixed in. This year, the two of the three coverages they're playing the most are cover 3 and cover 1. So they're playing a ton of single high stuff. And to your point, like, what does that mean? More guys in the box and or around the line of scrimmage, whether they're showing that pre-snap or they're spinning post-snap, you've got guys coming down to the ball. And something I've also noticed too, and you're seeing a lot of it here, like with guys in the wrong gaps, but like just the gang tackling aspect or like rallying to the ball aspect, guys aren't playing off of one another. You're not seeing like those vice tackles where like, okay, you've got two guys and it's like, all right, you box them in here, you box them in here. Cool. We'll meet at the ball carrier. Each of their angles will be wrong. And it's almost like both of them play more outside than they do working in tandem with one another. And it just seems like a real disconnect across the entire defense. Even little things the big story with the long Bijan touchdown run, we touched on it briefly in the film room, Bishop, obviously the angle, and then he doesn't make the tackle. Jamarcus Ingram, get out. Why are you letting Bijan get outside you?
Yes.
Because Bishop, to his credit, I think he takes an angle thinking that, okay, Ingram's outside. He's going to force Bijan back inside and I'll come and get Bijan.
Cascading effect.
Exactly. Bijan's able to bounce it, and all of a sudden now Bishop's angle is too far upfield, and he's got to banana further and get upfield. Now he's behind Bijan, which is a problem, and Bijan's a horse, and now he's got to try and make a tackle from behind. It's everybody kind of letting each other down. Again, it's whatever the opposite of complementary football is what we're seeing. And I think that's part of the biggest concern is that it's I don't want to say total failure because that makes it seem like everything is on fire, but it's like a failure across the board across each level, different players. It's sincerely perplexing, especially with how years before everything for them was rally to the ball, gang tackle, good angles, working in tandem. Somebody might miss a tackle, but that dude stumbled and then two other dudes came and popped him and cleaned him up. Now the cleanup guys are also missing. And like you said, cascading effect, and it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah, and we talked about, trying to figure out like maybe they're aligning differently. They're having a safety on this side versus last year they had on the other side versus 2x2 or inline tight ends. Like I'm trying to find everything. I could not see much aside from the glaring difference of nickel versus the 4-3 base numbers. And so courtesy of True Media, they have the Bills playing 4-3. So 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers, the 7th most in the NFL at 24.5%. And if you look at where they stand when that percentage compared to prior years, look at 2025 in the bottom right quadrant of this versus all the years where they were heavy nickel in the top left there. It's very different. And so that is one glaring thing that's different, but it's not something that like I'd expect them. If they're doing that, you would expect them to be better versus the run. If that makes sense. Like I know they played a lot of heavy personnel grouping teams, multiple tight end teams, some fullback teams, but 24.5% is a lot, especially when you're talking about some of the injuries that they've had with Milano being in and out of the lineup. So you're putting basically linebacker 4 and 5 at times out there. But I'm thinking now, because after all of those years of saying the Bills got to play more base defense, I'm almost feeling like, okay, maybe that wasn't the right idea, because I'd rather have Taron Johnson out there because I know he's going to trigger and maybe he may make mistakes and miss some tackles at times, but at least he knows his assignment and he attacks the ball and disrupts things and creates that chaos that the Bills have been missing from time to time, or at least consistently by putting another linebacker on the field versus Taron Johnson.
Yeah, he's been one of their better second level players for years. And I know he's not necessarily the all pro version of himself that he was, a couple or several years ago, but still, to your point, like even if he does miss some tackles from time to time, he usually doesn't miss a lot like in the box or versus the run. He'll miss some versus the pass like he has this year, but he's only got 1 against the run. I think he's got 4 or 5 missed tackles from a pass perspective, but at least he's going to be in the right spot he's going to fit his gap accordingly. And that will happen against a tight end. That'll happen if he's unblocked. That'll happen against a pulling guard or a climbing guard or tackle or whatever. His effectiveness in and around the box is why they leaned into nickel so hard for so many years. It's why guys like him, Mike Hilton with Cincinnati,
Yes,
Kenny Moore with the Colts, it's why those guys were so invaluable. It's why the Rams took Jalen Ramsey and were like, hey, we're going to, call it the star, but you're essentially going to play that nickel for us because how you can fit the run in addition to some of the coverage stuff. Having that type of guy is very impactful. And yeah, if you're taking him off the field because you're trying to match size with size, in theory, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But just doing that for the size perspective, if you're not fitting the run properly from an assignment perspective and or making tackles with that replacement, I'd rather throw the dude in there who I trust more and who in theory can make more plays.
And think about the Falcons game, when they went to those 2 running back sets with Algier and Bijan, but then they also had at times Warner as a fullback, H-back in the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills were matching with 3 linebackers and they were getting spread out. And it's like, I would rather have Taron Johnson in there in those situations. Because again, he has more range too, to make tackles from the fringe of the box and even from depth a little bit more than
how many of those motions and somebody was getting pulled out of the box. It was Dorian getting pulled or Shaq getting pulled because they were in those 3 linebacker sets.
Yeah. And so I think that's the conversation that they're probably going to talk about. Because you imagine, like, for years, they've been programmed that he was going to be their quasi third linebacker, right? We've had episodes on that and how he did it really well. And so, watching back and looking at some of those numbers and historically what Taron has done when they've kept him on the field, it made me yearn for him to play more than, the percentages he's playing right now. But it also made me look at some of his pass coverage film, because I've been hearing for weeks now that he's lost his step. He's not the same player at 29 years old. He's already on the downfall. And I'm like, okay, when I get time, I have to dig into his targets and in his completions that he surrendered. And when I looked at the numbers and then I watched the film of that, I was pretty shocked to see what, and then compare it to what people were saying, because look at this graph, courtesy of True Media. 24 targets at Taron Johnson, 17 receptions have been surrendered, and 1 touchdown, including 137 yards. But look at all these dots. All the red dots are the completions. And you can see a bunch of those completions are behind.
I'll say he's getting charged with mad behind the line of scrimmage. Oh, because he's the closest defender or the nearest defender from a greater. This is the Tremaine Edmonds conversation all over again.
And so the deepest pass that he's allowed was 15 yards. And that is the only one that's really going over. I guess he had 11 yard over here on the right boundary, but everything else is under 10 yards. Most are 5 yards and forward towards the line.
And even that touchdown is the Drake London one. And that was just Drake London being awesome. Yes. Like, he's huge. Taron had great coverage on him and great positioning. Yeah. London just made a play.
So then I went and looked at just the plays that were thrown beyond the line of scrimmage. So of the 17 completions against Johnson, 9 were thrown beyond the line of scrimmage. And here they are. So I'm looking at this.
Is this pre-vet? Is that first one pre-vet?
Yes. I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, these are the ones that were, there's a prevent play. These are charged at Taron Johnson. That's crazy, first of all, that he's charged with that. But if you watch these plays and think about this from the broadcast angle, he's surrendering some of these. Some of them you could even argue that they're not really on him. But I'm just thinking to myself, like, whoever's created this narrative of Taron Johnson has fallen off or has lost a step, I'm not seeing it. That is probably, that play right there is probably the worst play he had. And it was a great play call, because they ran that tight end leak right here. You see Taron Johnson, they're in zone coverage and they leak out that tight end down the defensive line of scrimmage. He gets lost in the wash here. Here's Taron Johnson right there. Like, that was a really nice play. Taron lost him. I'll give him that. Like, but that's probably the worst play. I'm not seeing it, Ant. I'm not seeing this drop off, which to me, again, I tend to be more optimistic, but I have no reason to think that this guy's lost his step yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm trying to play like everything in my head of where I've gone with him, and that my biggest gripe has been, it was the 2 New England ones that you had just showed, missing those tackles on Diggs when he got out there. But that's not like oh man, he got burned so bad. Like, get over
that throw. That's a 3 or 4 yard throw.
Yeah, he's not getting beat all over the place. I haven't been, because of being sick and moving, I haven't been too into social. I didn't know this narrative was a thing, that he's like lost a step and he's down.
He should be converted to safety.
Oh, I don't want to get too off topic here with it. I understand that notion from people, for like a lot of folks, right? But I've gotten that comment for Trey. I've gotten that comment for Terrell Bernard, and I understand why people think that for things. It's a really hard transition to go from not being a safety to being a safety. It's a completely different viewpoint, vantage point, all of that, let alone traits and stuff. But yeah, I don't think Taron has fallen off. He also had a couple really great man coverage reps in this game against Atlanta, including that one nice fourth down stop at the end of the first half. This coverage on Drake London is fantastic. He's all over him. This is just one, good ball placement from Penix. Two, London's built like a friggin' pterodactyl, which is part of the reason why he's awesome. Like, London got locked up there. That's a great throw. And London just being a dude and being huge. Yeah, I didn't know that was a narrative. I would love him if he could play safety, because he's a much better tackler than what they have going on right now. But I don't think
that conversation is there yet. No, he's 29 years old, guys, and he's a very good nickel defender, still in that upper echelon. Maybe he's not elite anymore, because for a couple of years he was elite.
Yeah, he was one of the best. He was one of the top 3 nickel corners in the game for like 2-3 seasons.
But let's not try to push him to safety because he's lost a step at corner, or because like that's usually the beginning of that conversation. Well, he's lost a step, but they could really use his IQ and ability to tackle. It's obviously there. Let's put him at safety. But
and also as a DB person and like a coverage person, that also like offends me, because like safeties are good. Stop being like, well, this guy sucks at this position. Let's see if he can do safety. It's not just like take the bad players or the guys who are struggling and move them to safety. Like, no, you need safeties playing safety, or good dudes who can play safety. But again, I understand where the frustration comes from and the kind of thought behind it, but it's so much harder than it gets made out to be.
Brandon asks, in your guys' opinion, why was the defense so much better under McDermott? Because of players and availability? Why the huge drop off? Just curious your thoughts. Go ahead, Ann. I'll leave that one to you, man. I wish I had an answer to that, when it comes to their play under McDermott when he was the DC.
I think one, it starts with the roster and who was there at those times, like the level of players that they had, especially at the safety position. But you had less youth, you had more veteran savvy and experience on the field from an actual roster standpoint. I also think you had Sean McDermott, who has plenty of savvy and experience as a play caller, as a defensive mind, all of that. Like, he's seen a ton. Having a guy who's seen a lot and called a lot and worn that headset and done that job versus having a guy who's new to it, in terms of Bobby Babich being in his second year, that kind of in and of itself is enough of a difference, let alone the injuries they've had this year, having to play more rookies. I also think I think Sean McDermott, why was the defense so much better than Sean McDermott? I think Sean McDermott's probably a better defensive coordinator than Bobby Babich. He's a better game planner. He's a better caller. He understands the feel. Yeah, he's proven. He had a defense that had a ton of studs on it, but he helped develop those studs. He was a defensive coordinator for a Super Bowl team. And that Panthers defense played awesome in that Super Bowl. The Broncos defense just played better. So he's a better defensive mind. I'd like him to take the headset back potentially.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with it. And I think over the last couple of years, there have been times that he very well could have. That second half of that Falcons game, I can't confirm that he didn't have a heavy hand in that second half, but
or at least it's very hey man, you need to change these 3 things now. Like, he had to have he didn't maybe have to take the headset, but he did something.
He had the ears of the locker room. I guarantee that after that first half against the Falcons, he had the ears. He more so than Bobby Babich. There's no doubt about it. And the answers that they came out with some of the linebackers on the line of scrimmage and things like that, mugging the line in pass situations as well. I guarantee that came from Sean McDermott, not Bobby Babich. And
that's McDermott. That's McDermott Panther stuff all day. Ironically, having Shaq Thompson there too. Yeah, especially mugging and playing that way.
Yeah, so I'm sure that the experience and having the answers versus certain schemes. I just flash back to the Broncos when they were playing against the Panthers and he was the DC there. They ran a lot of those zone runs. And so they ran, that was like the offensive run concept of choice back then. It's kind of like now that resurgence of McVay, Shanahan, like that outside zone run game was huge with Alex Gibbs back in the day. And and that, the Kubiaks of the world. And so he knows answers. Probably he has a bigger Rolodex and playbook and answers to stop outside zone, which we've talked about online, offline, social media, how the Bills are really bad against that right now. But that's a whole nother topic that we could cover on another day. But I think he's got more experience, Brandon. I think that's a big thing, and he knows ways to disrupt things. So I imagine, given the video that we just saw probably over the last couple hours about McDermott and his bye week and talking about how he was at home resting and relaxing, but then his wife was realizing that he is kind of antsy and he just like preoccupied. And so basically what he told his wife was like, I got to go in, I got to go watch film, I got to go be by myself and study. I imagine it's eating at him at how bad this defense has played through the first few games.
Yeah, it's got to. He takes this extremely seriously. I shouldn't say any, because I'm sure there's some people that are more lax than others, but I don't think he's sitting on his hands. Like, these type of performances piss him off, especially to something that's so like core and fundamental, even for the run defense struggles, right? Like when someone can run the ball on you, that's like an insult to a defense. Like they're taking your soul and running through you. And so much of it for the past couple of years, I didn't like it, but I understood some of it because it was like, we're kind of inviting the run more so than anything. And I was like, I don't like the way you're inviting it. Please stop. This year, it's not so much inviting it, it's their soul being taken. And so that's a problem. Like he's not going to like that. He's not going to want
like we were talked about. He's bringing guys up.
Yes.
Usually it was before, stay in those 2 high shells and have these safeties fill the C and D gaps from depth. Now they're just like, no, we got to send people up. Yes. And they're still not tackling. They're still not stopping them.
They're compromising their coverage structure usage on the back end and their ability. You and I were talking about this Sunday. Yeah, their ability to disguise it. They're compromising all of that because they have to walk dudes down either pre-snap or immediately on the snap and spin them. Like they're compromising what he wants to be, and they're still not getting the result that he wants. So he's had a sacrifice, and he's not even getting the payoff for it.
Right?
Yeah, I would imagine he's pretty frustrated. I would imagine he laid into this team in a bunch of ways. And that's part of the reason I'm excited to even get past the bye week and get more to these games, especially going like home, quote unquote, to Carolina. Like go in, get the opportunity to kick their teeth in, and then come back home to play Kansas City. Like they know what's up, and he's gonna potentially be ready for that, and hopefully the other side of the ball, the offensive side of the ball, hopefully they're ready for Carolina. Hopefully they're ready for the Chiefs. Actually, as we start to dive into the offense, Eric, I started this comment earlier. Oh, also from Brandon. It was a question. It was off topic at the time, but we can use this to talk into some offense. It's on Keon Coleman, who is a very polarizing guy nowadays. Brandon says, don't want to get off topic, but just gotta ask guys that know ball. Appreciate you for that. He says, is there a way to put Coleman in the slot instead of the outside and try to use his size against linebackers?
Yes, of course. And yes, they should mix it up a little more with him. But what worries me about that is when you play inside more, it's much like the offensive line. When you're inside in the slot more, there's a lot more responsibility and there's a lot more bodies and it's a lot faster.
Oh.
And so you got to think about it from Coleman's perspective and his strengths, his weaknesses. One, okay, can he read coverages quickly and be Josh's outlet if needed? Can he be that hot route? Can he find those soft spots in the zone against, certain coverages and do it quickly within the structure of a play? These are all questions that I don't think he has been consistent at doing. And so has he been a precise route runner? Does he give the body language that Josh can read so he knows he's going to break in instead of out on option routes? Is he going to catch the ball and secure the ball, which when you threw him the ball in the hook to curl area, he fumbled it a couple weeks ago. And so those things worry me about him as a slot. He's going to be doing a lot of Shakir things, Dalton Kincaid things. And you know how much we respect those two guys and how important they are and how good of route runners they are and how dependable they are. Is Keon Coleman those things? So you need to start asking yourselves that, because yes, I understand you want to break some tendencies. You want to get him the ball. The last time we saw Allen trying to get Keon Coleman the ball, he was forcing it to him and things went off the rails, the rails. And so these are things we need to ask ourselves. I understand that guys like Matt Harmon and other mainstream media and content creators want to make him a big slot. I'm not sold that he is, but I'm also not sold that he's a boundary guy and a pure X guy. So there's some growing that needs to be had. We're talking about a guy that has been in the doghouse of this coaching staff. So what makes you think they want to put more on his plate by bringing him inside?
Super fair point. I don't have too much to add. My thing is I think there's a lot to handle mentally when you move inside, like you said. And is he ready to handle that? One. Two, what you also mentioned, like if you're using him in the slot more, that means you're using Kincaid and Shakir less there. And I would rather have Kincaid and Shakir there too. Third, and selfishly, if you're going to put him in the slot more, then I'm going to get really angry because you could have just drafted Ladd McConkey if you're going to use a wide receiver for the slot. If you're going to have a guy take away Kincaid and Shakir options in the slot, I would have rather had Ladd. But we didn't want to take Ladd because of the redundancy with Shakir. And you already had a slot guy. So it's like, okay, you want more of the X. Fine. And now they're in a spot where are they trying to develop him or is it putting a round peg into a square hole?
Right.
So I know that's more of an emotional response, but that would like, every slot snap he gets, then I'm really like, they could have just I think that's
his
like
bread and butter.
Fair comment. Yeah, let him sell vertical, and he's been better at some of that stuff this year. He had a really nice deep out against McKinstry for New Orleans with a nice rocker step.
Play action.
Like,
that's where he needs to be one of the play action guys. Him and Kincaid, outside the numbers, deep comebacks, stop routes, that leverage read. He could go deep. He could snap it off, hinge to the sideline. You saw him run that dig route, right? That deep in route off of play action against the Saints, like you said. I think Nick's right. I think that is really where his bread and butter is. And it's like, yeah, we're trying to get him inside to get him matched up with safeties and linebackers. Well, that's fine. That's great. But he couldn't even be a guy in the slot against the Patriots who's a lot smaller than him.
I was going to say he ran a slot fade against Marcus Jones.
I was going to say Marcus Easley, but Marcus Jones, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, he didn't win that. And I think also some of it too is like, I think some of the ball placement from Allen isn't like he's throwing it to Keon some of the back shoulder fades from like a precision standpoint when I would like him to put it more up to let him go up and get it, which isn't necessarily completely on Allen because you want Keon to be able to adjust, but Keon's still limited because he's a project. And I think the biggest thing, and I've said it a bunch now at this point, like you took a receiver that you knew was a project and you needed, and he's young and is inexperienced. And they needed him to be like a top of the depth chart guy right away as a rookie and a second year guy. And that's not really setting up a project for success.
Those expectations are coming down on him.
Yeah. And they're coming down on the team too. Like, and I don't think Keon's been terrible this year. And I actually think he's made good strides and improvement versus what he was last year, but he's still not a finished product because of how raw and inexperienced he was. He needs to get better each year and each year. We're not going to know who he is until middle of next year or even year 4. But they're a Super Bowl aspirations team. The fan base wants blood, and he's not doing what he was drafted to do at this point. So he's on the chopping block for everybody.
So now that we're on the offensive side of the ball, I want to talk about the exotic pressures and looks that the Bills have seen over the last few weeks, especially we're talking that game against the Falcons and specifically the load front. So a 5-man surface, 5 guys on the D line. This is from last year, but this gives you an idea. 3 to one side of the center, and then you're going to have 2 on the other. There's our boy, Michael.
I was like, shout out to Michael Hoyt.
Yeah, he's coming back. The Bills have struggled against it this year. They did a great job last year of offsetting it. And so we want to talk about not necessarily the struggles because we already went over that last week. And I want to show some of the answers that the Bills used in the past. So last year against this load front, and there are a lot of things that need to be better this year. Josh has to be better in the pocket. He's got to manipulate the pocket. He needs to identify who the actual rushers are, things like that, get on the same page with his offensive line. But essentially what a source told me was that it's twofold. Defenses currently are challenging the Bills with this load front, this 5-man surface, for one, to contain Josh Allen, to keep him in the pocket, to not let him find those easy escape lanes when everyone's rushing upfield and he just goes right up the middle. So that kind of throws off those rush lanes and contains Josh. But second part of that, I was told that basically it's to force the guys on the outside to win one-on-ones. And so now, Anthony, when we get to the film and you think about those things, I want you guys to watch this and where the Bills were going and who they were going to when the defenses in 2024 challenge them with these load fronts. And on this play, you're going to see Shakir to the bottom of the screen after some motion from Samuel. The ball is quickly out of Josh's hands, but you see him manipulate that pocket. That's what we're talking about. Look at him. He knows where that pressure is going to come from. He slides to his right just a little bit to buy some time, and that motion and all that shifting opened up the middle of the field, caused a blown coverage, and allowed Josh to find Shakir. Hello, Shakir, in these situations, because good things happen when you put the ball in his hands.
This is such a nice play to lead off with because I talked about this last night in Disguise coverage. They need to get the ball to Khalil Shakir more. This offense needs to funnel through him, Dalton Kincaid, and James Cook. It just, like you said, like you just get the ball in Khalil Shakir's hands and good things usually happen. So it's funny that happens on this one too. The pocket manipulation, like Allen, he's been quicker to evade and not as much under control as he normally is. It feels like this year, and some of the stats even back it up. His pressure to sack rate is up this year. He's been one of the best in the league for several years, including being the best last year amongst like 40-something qualifying quarterbacks. This year, he's more middle of the pack, and you're just seeing him not necessarily from whether it's from a pre-snap ID perspective or from a post-snap execution perspective, not holistically be there. But he has the capacity for it. This offense has the capacity for it. We just need to see more of these quick built-in answers where Allen is able to spit the ball out and not have to sit there, deal with that pressure from the pocket and or try to find guys who are winning opportunities outside.
Yeah, just find that platform. I mean, the Rams are doing some crazy games right here, right? And they're trying to get him to create that negative play. Last year, he didn't do that. He didn't create those negative plays. That's what really won him the MVP. He got in these situations where, hey, they're going to send something exotic. I'm just going to throw a wide receiver, a tight end screen out wide, get into a manageable next down. This play, you see him, he understands that verse on the left side is going to be wheeling and dealing inside there. He's, you know what? I'm just going to slide my right a little bit, get just enough time so I can be a rotational passer and put the ball in the hands of Shakir, and Shakir does the rest for 6 points. You gotta find Shakir. You gotta find Kincaid. It's what they did last year. It's what they should do this year when they get to these exotic plays. The Colts, remember when we had McGovern in the film room, and I asked him ahead of time during the week, I go, what plays do you want to look at when it talks about teams blitzing you guys and trying to affect Josh Allen? He goes, start with that Colts game. They did some crazy stunts in games. And so you see that here. You see the craziness coming. What does Josh do? Just spits it out to Shakir on that screen, and good things freaking happen when you do that. Look at that. That just went from a negative type play to an easy first down by getting the ball in the hands of Shakir.
You know, it's funny, when we started talking about this offline, my head went to the Colts game, like this play. And then I know it necessarily might not be the same thing, but I was thinking the big screenplay or later in this game to tie that we broke down with McGovern. That episode was so awesome. He was labeling everybody's responsibilities.
He taught us the load front. He taught us this type of stuff. The answers. He's a smart dude.
Hell yeah. Dropping a ton of knowledge. And it's, Allen's gotten so much better between the ears and identifying stuff pre-snap. And from the center spot, we were like, oh, Mitch Morse going away. We'll see what McGovern does. But there's really been no let up and no drop off. And that's a credit to McGovern and, with what Morse was. Yeah, but they had these baked in answers. I liked a lot of this last year. And I know it wasn't the sexiest thing, but like, just looking at numbers and like the whole run with a pass tag type of deal, like, or the alerts, however you want to go, like, right. So sometimes it's an RPO, sometimes it's a run with a pass tag, sometimes it's the alert. But just recognizing like, oh, hey, they've only got 2 guys over there versus our 2, and the angle, it's a wide side of the field. Let me spit it out. Or there's only 2 over there versus our 3. Let me spit it out. Or everybody, even if they're not going to bring the pressure, everybody's kind of inside the numbers. Let me spit it out to the numbers because we can probably take advantage of it. There seems like there's been less of that this year, and it's more trying to deal. And this is another good example. You have everybody highlighted here. Good job from Hollins and Samuel blocking out there, but you've got this good offensive line that's also good in space, and you can get these guys moving. And this isn't even with Spencer Brown out there. It's Vandermark out there. Yeah. But Dawkins can move. Brown can move. Edwards can move a bit. McGovern can move a bit. Torrance, maybe not so much, but every once in a while. Like, you've got dudes who can scoot a bit, take advantage of that, especially if teams are trying to heat you up and you don't have that running back screen presence. Spit that stuff out quick to Shakir and then go from there.
Yeah, and again, there's a 3 to the right, and you're going to see how, the Jags also bring another variation of this load front. 3 overload over here, and then 2 coming from the left. And what does Josh do? He just, again, remains calm, finds that spot in the pocket, and gets the ball to Shakir across the middle with some separation, and good things happen. And so, again, I think when it comes to these blitzes, pressures, the load front overall, Josh needs to calm down, show a little more poise, trust in your offensive line, because I feel like he's just been dropping his eyes a little bit too much and too often against these looks early this year, and just find your answers. And sometimes those answers are really easy. They're right in front of you.
Yeah, I think Brady can do some stuff that we, a lot of what we just talked about previously within this segment, I think Brady can help out a bit.
No
But to
doubt.
your point, I think some of it is on Allen. That's such a great point that you just made of, I felt his eyes dropping more with pressure this year instead of him standing in there, evading, eyes upfield, looking to still make a play. It does feel like it's been more skittishness, and not from like a panic standpoint, but more of like, screw it, I'll do it on my own type of deal. And it's led to some inefficiency. And if you can help out a bit from a Brady perspective, or Allen and this offensive line, the proper pre-snap IDs and what they can do and move from there. Good comment here from Joey saying, I would love to see Cook get more involved in the pass game like McCaffrey. Man, I'm going to try and find it since we mentioned that and you've highlighted Cook here. Their running back metrics, one of the best things about Joe Brady since his time back at LSU, have always been so great. This year, they are towards the bottom of the league in EPA per target and receiving EPA after being one of the best or the best last year, despite not having a ton of volume to it.
Yeah, and so here's one. It's a quick play, easy identification thanks to shifting and motioning, and you get the matchup you want. James Cook into the boundary, nice little pick there by Hollins. That was his strength as well, and you see Cook get up the field on a nice reception here. Yeah, I agree. I agree, Joe. I think they need to get him the ball a lot more in the passing game. Some of those swing screens, anything, because he is an explosive player when we're talking the run and the pass game.
The teams have really defended their mesh in general. It feels like they're running it a ton, but like the mesh rail piece has been covered really well by a lot of teams. Like they're getting guys over the top.
They're peeling too.
Yes.
They're peeling DNs and edge
I was gonna say
linebackers.
Atlanta did it. Like you were seeing Ebiketie, number 17 for Atlanta, peel and drop off and get underneath. And Allen, if Allen doesn't see it right away, like he comes off of it. And they're really,
and one way to counter that, if you know those teams are peeling that D end when they're in a 2x2 and Cook is swinging, if they're peeling that guy, is you make it look like you're swinging, but then you run in Texas route or angle route over the middle,
inside, baby,
and he will be wide open.
Yeah, they need to. That's a great call. They need to start working in variation, because guys are essentially like selling out over the top, knowing whether they're peeling or if they're in off and they know like, okay, let me just take a proper angle and get over the top because I know the rail is coming. And then Allen sees that and he has to go elsewhere. It's just a nice little wrinkle. Teams have kind of keyed into the Bills mesh game, but especially mesh rail, and it hasn't been available for them. And I expect Brady to be better there, because he's done, granted, he's had some good dudes like Christian McCaffrey, for example, this time in Carolina, but amongst other guys there, I mean, he was still cooking with Mike Davis, right? In Carolina, running back. That's what I'm thinking of, right?
Yep. He was a little thicker too. Yep.
That's exactly right. And I mean, this is also the guy who convinced everybody that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to be an awesome running back in the NFL and worthy of a first-round pick. So he's got it in him. I think it's an aspect they, again, have to continue to lean in as they continue to find those easy buttons or find new variations to their previous easy buttons.
And, these load fronts, these exotic blitzes, they come on 3rd and long. So usually 3rd and 7 yards or more. And so one way to combat that, aside from having these answers that we just broke down, let's rewind a little bit. How about not getting into 3rd and long situations, right? Being better on early downs. And one way to do that is to attack your tendencies in the scouting week and the bye week. Understand that, okay, if I'm in the Bills have been in the gun, and early downs especially, the tendency for them right now is to pass the ball. And so one way to offset that is to run the ball more, which I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but running out of gun, because right now the Bills are running when they're in shotgun, they're passing the ball like 78% of the time. It's like 10% higher than last year. It's like 6th overall. Well, one way to combat that and to make things more difficult so that defenses and DCs can't attack you is to throw the curveball, right? And so one curveball they have is to run the ball out of shotgun. And if we're talking about shotgun runs, Anthony, what concepts come to mind for you? Not necessarily this year because they haven't run it a lot this year, but last year and the year before, it was their bread and butter.
Yeah, all the tackle pull stuff, dart, long trap. They did. If anybody wants to know what that is, just essentially go back, watch Bills versus Cowboys in Buffalo a couple seasons ago. They ran this play like 75 times and just ate Dallas with it. I tweeted about this during the Patriots game because of what was going on when they were going heavy, which is normally what I love, but the Pats had a good answer for everything. It was like, cool, go back to what you did a couple seasons ago, spread New England out, make them, you can go 12, but go 12 and go 2x2 gun or something and have them spread out those big heavies and run your tackle pull stuff. Lean into arguably the best part of your offensive line, which is Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown on the move. You've got Dawkins highlighted there. You've got shotgun, little same side. Yep. Dart here is you pull Dawkins through, and all of a sudden he's your lead blocker. Good job for Cook reading this. Dawkins gets up to the second level on Zaire Franklin. Cook follows him accordingly. They need to get back to this aspect, especially like to building into that tendency of what their shotgun pass rate is. And then even conversely, when they're under center, their run rate is about 79%. So pass a little more out of under center, run a little bit more when you're in shotgun.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't hurt to throw more from under center. And we all know that like under center passing, especially straight drop back specifically, that's not there aren't many teams just doing straight drop back. You know, maybe the Rams do a lot of straight drop back.
Seattle,
the Seahawks, yes, the Seahawks.
Shock, I would say the whole
Minnesota.
Shanahan, McVay,
right. But the Bills primarily, if they're under center and they're passing, it's play action, but it works. It's efficient for them, and they get explosives with it. But if we're talking staying out of third and long and against those exotic blitzes, first and second down, shotgun runs, the throw off tendencies to get back to their bread and butter and lightening the box by spreading it out. You see, there's only 6 in the box here and allowing James Cook to slice and dice defenses for big plays, for explosive plays, like you're seeing here from the Lions game last year.
Yeah, and then with this box count for the Lions, so you've got 6, but then they leave that backside edge unblocked. He hesitates a little bit because he sees Allen. He has to account for Allen. So you essentially create a hat on a hat and take it from 6 versus 5 to 5 on 5 and look at everybody just being accounted for front side. The Quan Alexander, number 10, has to play as the force player against Brown, but that doesn't matter because Cook has another man picking up a defender on the interior and then Cook does the rest. Like getting their identity is the run game, and that's such an important foundation. And we talked about earlier this year, like 12 personnel and 13 and 21 and 22, and they can still utilize those, but they got to go more spread at this point, especially as teams have started to, Atlanta had a couple weeks to prepare, plus Ulbrich. The Pats, a lot of familiarity, especially with Vrabel. Teams are starting to key in on a little more of their under center run stuff, how they run duo a bit, how they run, especially like weak side, mid zone, and all the presentation stuff. So getting back into some of the gun run things that they really at the forefront of the past couple of seasons would be very helpful.
Yeah, here's one from this year against the Patriots. You see 2 high safety structure, light box. They bring safety down late from the strong side, the tight end side, and you see a nice gain by Cook there. This is one from 2024. We also broke down with Connor McGovern, Gilliam in the game, extra offensive lineman, and Anderson. They are able to get this off right at the last second. Outside zone, man. Just again, this is still that heavy personnel type grouping that the Bills have led off this year with. Pistol, as you said, James Cook still on the dot. This is putting the ball in the hands of an explosive playmaker, and you see what happens when you do that. And I think that's where they need to get back to some of the roots from last year. Again, spreading them out a little bit, lightening those boxes, and then getting the ball in the hands of James Cook. They need to do that in the run and the pass game.
Yeah, just start to they don't need to completely change their identity. They don't need to flip everything on its head, but just start to change those tendency pieces a little bit. When you're starting to get into like 80% range, especially for something as large scale as shotgun pass rate, that is that takes it more from like, yeah, they're probably going to do this to more of they're doing this from a defensive standpoint. Then you're getting into too much giveaway. You're giving into too much tell. You're starting to make things too easy. You just need to, like you said, last year, they were, I think, like a 68 or 69% shotgun pass rate. Like that's closer, 70-30 is a bigger difference. And it might not seem like a ton. It's only, still, 70% of the time. That's a big difference when you're talking about tendency and how you're building in expectations for a defense versus almost 80%.
And like you said, you're not flipping the entire offense on its head. Right here, Hollins and Knox right there, and they're just running inside zone to the right side. I mean, okay, you run inside zone, you get a nice run here by Cook, but at the same time, you're also going ahead and creating that illusion that, hey, maybe Josh fakes it to Cook, and now you're running your your curl flat concepts, your RPO type stuff off of it. It opens up other layers to your offense rather than just under center, here comes mid zone. Under center, here comes duo. Now's the time to start throwing those curveballs, and you see a nice fold by Deion Dawkins there, and you see how the offense just. And this is the game that Brady said they started to hit their stride last year. So I'd like to see some of this stuff be incorporated more, whether it's tackle Rapp, inside zone, some of these full blocks on zone runs. But in the end, I think the equation is put the ball in the hands of James Cook, honestly.
Yeah, super fair. Yeah, you run pin and pull from here, whatever the hell you want to do. And like you said, like you could use this run and catalog it and be like, hey, nobody really went with Josh on the keeper action. Maybe we're going to have Josh keep it next time. I would love for them to kind of start to, not saying it's an emergency, but a little more of kind of break in case of emergency, break glass, release Josh Allen's legs from a design standpoint. Just a little here and there, but mainly more
things up, no doubt.
Yes, it could definitely open things up. And I'd like it more from the play action standpoint. Give me more boots. We talked about pocket manipulation a little bit. Give me some more moving pockets and some layered concepts. To just anything to keep defenses from being able to kind of tee off and understand what's going on. But also, I feel like anytime you put Allen on the move, it's a win, because if you're going to stay with those passing concepts, he can run a little bit or he could dump it off.
Yeah, I saw some tackle wraps, some tackle pulls, some of those inside zone runs. Here's one from this year that they ran. Again, this is kind of blending what we're talking about. Gun runs, but the variations with Hawes being in there, Gilliam being in there, gap run here. So you're not changing everything drastically. It's just adding the element of Josh and shotgun so that it can set off the tendency and off balance the tendency of them always passing when they are in shotgun. And this is going to change some things, because you're going to see, depending on the personnel, you're going to see different personnel from the defense. And you're also going to see defense have to defend you differently when it comes to X's and O's and schematics, because not only can they run the array of run concepts from this shotgun look, but as you said, you're adding the layer of, hey, maybe Josh can keep it, and Josh can keep it, not just boot out to one side. He can go to either side. You're creating that read option conflict. Okay, what if Josh keeps it on this play? Someone better be assigned to him, because if they don't, Josh can hurt them. So it just adds layers to the offense and add layers for the defensive coordinator to really have to prepare for.
And this is something they, really was like at the core of them starting to run the football a couple of seasons ago. Like this whole heavier, bigger bodied personnel, condensed formations, true run game stuff, that was really like a 2024 thing. But in 2023, they were good at running the ball too. They were just a gun run team. It was a lot of dart and tackle wrap and pull and, all the tackle pull stuff, long trap, everything. Like that's who they were under Dorsey. And then even more so under Brady, because Brady committed to it more. Like that's where their whole run game piece started, was in gun runs. And that's why I don't think it's not really something too revelatory or hard for them to incorporate. Just get back to a little bit of that. Your run game can still be the foundation. And then you start to monkey, like you said, with personnel or alignment, work in some play action. Again, ideally work in some boots, move some pockets. There are so many layers and everything you can do to start to keep get defenses more off balance. I think defenses, despite the fact that Allen is Allen and he's the reigning MVP and Cook is sweet and they have a good run game, I think defenses the past several weeks have gotten a little comfortable in terms of knowing what you're going to get from the Bills. And that can actually be fine if you spin it, not completely on its head, but you start to tweak some of those tendencies, because now you can add those layers, add in more variability, unpredictability, And now defenses have to start thinking a little bit more, which is awesome. And then when they're thinking, you can just hit them right in the mouth.
Yeah, and again, it's not drastic, these changes.
Uh-huh.
Running from shotgun this year, just this year, when the Bills are in shotgun, rush EPA, it's second overall ranking. Second overall, 0.08. Now, that's not as high as if they were just to pass it, but it gives you an idea that they actually, when they do run it out of shotgun, it's not bad. But this is the caveat. It's not bad because a lot of the Bills' first and second down shotgun runs have been QB scrambles. And so that's second overall in EPA per rush when in shotgun this year. But if I take out the quarterback scrambles and things like that, the Bills for running backs only, EPA per rush out of shotgun, they're even better. Hold on, they're even better. Hold on. Is that correct? I thought it was worse. Okay, so they're even better. Okay, here it is. So they're actually first overall at 0.19.
I hate when there's a data point where you're like, wait a minute, that can't be right. Like, it's got to be something else.
Let me check the filters. Hold on.
Yeah,
hold on,
right.
hold on. I could have swore okay, yeah. So they're even better. They're all twice as better. So erase a lot of what I just said. So I think what it comes down to is, again, James Cook, run and pass game, offsetting those tendencies. And, you only have so much time during the bye week because you don't want to overload the changes and the players and the coaching staff. I think to stay away from those exotic pressures, to continue with the identity of James Cook is a superstar running back that the Bills need to utilize more and keep him on the field more. I think gun runs, passing game for him, and settling in. I think they're going to be okay on offense. Defense, I'm still in wait and see mode. I think offensively, they need to get back to their identity and get back to that baseline of not just having the run game from under center, but also run game from shotgun and giving Josh better looks. And I think by doing that, running the ball out of shotgun with James Cook, I think that'll give him better looks when they do want to pass out of shotgun.
And to your point. So I ran numbers as well out of gun runs to running backs only. Second in EPA per attempt at 0.21. And I got a 60% positive play rate, which is second as well. So they're behind the Rams in only EPA per attempt and positive play rate. And then they're also fourth in overall EPA at 4.19. Just a little bit.
So they can do it.
Yeah, they can do it.
So they can do it. So it's just doing it more. Just
do it more.
Just do it more from shotgun. And so I'm excited. I know it's been a rough couple weeks for us fans, for us analysts. We're happy that there's a game coming up because it's been a long, long bye week, especially compared to the last couple of years. Especially when they lost, last couple of years when they've lost back-to-back games.
Yeah. And this game Sunday is at 1:00, just primo time slot, Sunday, 1:00. Yeah, it's been a very interesting past couple of weeks. Not only, and it's really been like the perfect storm for losing, right? Like not only did they lose back to back, but very like underwhelming type of losses. One of them being to New England. Now Bills fans have to deal with Patriots fans chirping them and running their mouth. And now everybody's in love with Drake May and Mike Vrabel. And are the Patriots back? And there was the whiteout and the cool uniforms and the Patriots ruined it. And then you lost to the Falcons, a team that I think every Bills fan thought the Bills were going to go into Atlanta and beat Atlanta. And then the Niners come out with all their backups on Sunday Night Football and stop the Falcons offense, and everybody's mad even more. It's really just been like frustration upon frustration upon frustration. I'm excited to, unless they lose to Carolina, it's going to be a bloodbath next week if that happens. But yeah, I'm excited to get back to real football again after the bye and hopefully put these string of losses behind the Bills, and they beat Carolina and then on to a suddenly very, very, very important showdown in Buffalo against Kansas City the week after that. It's fun. It's going to be fun. Yeah, I'm not going to read this, but yeah, no bones about it says, if we don't win this week, we're in a world of shit.
If we don't win this week, next week's show is canceled.
Yeah, we're packing it up.
Yeah, we got something going on. All right.
Yeah, I think someone's calling my name. Is that my car that's going off? I got to go.
Yeah.
I got a motorcycle to buy that week after that. I can't do it.
No, we appreciate everyone joining us for this week's show. Hopefully we gave you some answers, some ideas of, things the Bills could do to offset some of the tendencies, but also offset what teams are doing to them, because they have the answers. They've shown the answers. They just need to adapt and recognize those situations, recognize those tendencies, and just like you said, just tweak it just a little bit to work in your favor. Because the Bills have a very good scheme. I know a lot of people hate Joe Brady. They want him fired. They have a really good scheme.
Yeah, man.
There are answers there. You have an elite quarterback. You have a very, very good running back. You have an elite offensive line. They have the tools and answers to go very deep into the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone and people say like, oh, of course, like you guys gonna say that, like, but no team is without flaws. There is no perfect team from a roster standpoint, from a schematic standpoint. And a lot of and I say that as a person who like I led off this episode with a lot of my fears and concerns, especially on the defensive side of the ball this year. Those chickens have come home to roost. And so if anyone would be like more on the ledge or pissed, like it should be someone like me I was like, hey, these are kind of scary. These are some red flags. And those flags are very red now. They're still a good squad. They're still a good team. I would rather have some struggles in October and then be able to right the ship going forward than all of a sudden them get found out in December and they're unable to kind of pivot and they're screwed as they go into the playoffs. And that's also, and I don't know if this is part of the past season's feelings or whatever. I know how important the 1 seed is to everyone, and I would like it from a bye week standpoint. Kansas City, and granted, the Bills were banged up when they played Kansas City at home in the playoffs a couple of years ago, but the Bills have shown that they've lost at home in the playoffs a couple of times. I don't care if they get to the playoffs at 13-4 and the 1 seed, or they get to the playoffs and 10-7 as the last wild card. I want them healthy in the playoffs, and I want the ship righted, and that's all I care about. Like, they are going to have to go through the better teams no matter what. Home field advantage hasn't been this huge advantage that everybody wants it to be. Just get to the dance and go from there. If they don't win the AFC East, that's fine. I don't care. Like, would I like it? Sure. Get healthy, get right. And if that means it's ugly in October, in the middle of November, because everybody's banged up, but they're 100% healthy come December and January, I'll play that game, because we've had the inverse for the past several years where they're healthy for the regular season and they're good, and then they're banged up for the playoffs and they get booted. I don't care about regular season trophies anymore. It's all about the chip and going from there. Sorry, that's just kind of.
No, it's a great way to end the show, man. That's a great point. That's what matters.
Yeah,
that's what.
But
matters.
Again, if they lose to Carolina, we're not doing the show.
Yeah, you can mark that down in pen.
Yeah, permanent marker. Yeah, that will happen. We hope you folks enjoyed this episode, especially those of you who were working and maybe turning us on during work, or who blew off work to listen to us. We appreciate you folks. Yep. So if you are watching us live here now on YouTube, please, and thank you. Drop a like on this video. If you're watching later on YouTube, that's cool too. Please drop a like on this video. Whenever you're watching on YouTube, if you are here, turn on notifications for the Cover One from Film Room playlist. Subscribe to the Cover One channel and the multitude of content we have for you across pretty much every single day of the week here on the brand. If you are listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Film Room, Cover One channel, shows, all of that kind of stuff. Whatever form or fashion your support comes in, we're tremendously thankful for it and appreciative of it. Erik, any final thoughts or parting words for the people before we say goodbye?
No, thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining us. And if you weren't able to listen or watch the whole show, of course, you can find all of our content on all audio podcast platforms as well.
Absolutely. And major thank you, as always, to our in-season sponsor here on the show, Easy Loan Auto Sales. They are Western New York's premier buy here, pay here car dealership with locations in Buffalo and Lockport. Regardless of your credit history, they offer the fastest car buying experience around. Get approved and reserve your vehicle all from your phone, and you can start your approval at easyloanauto.com, and you could be driving today. Major thank you and shout out to the folks at Easy Loan Auto Sales. Major thank you and shout out to our man behind the scenes, Mr. Joe DeRosa, as always, for helping us put things together, especially with Erik and I's schedule, which you folks obviously know because you watch the show. Sometimes it's pre-recorded and it goes up at 7. Sometimes it's live at 5. Sometimes it's live at 3:45. We day jobs and family and life and all that stuff. Yep. So we appreciate your fluidity and we appreciate Joe's fluidity as well. And thank you to everyone for tuning in, whatever form or fashion your consumption or support comes in. We're tremendously thankful for it and appreciative of it. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. We will see you when we see you. Thank you for the kind words coming in the chat and throughout the episode for us on the show. We really appreciate it. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.